Hello, friends. Welcome back again. So, as we have learned the basics that are required for the verbal ability, now we will go a step further ahead about the requirements for GRE. So, the another important aspect in English is knowing and understanding about the idioms and idiomatic expressions. Now, let us see what is an idiom, right? So, most of us would have come across this saying, idioms and phrases. So, let us understand what is this idiom all about. An idiom is a particular word or even an expression whose meaning cannot be readily understood, right? Whose meaning cannot be readily understood by either its grammar or the words that are used. And that means the words may not give the exact literal meaning of that particular word. When we use them as an idiom or a phrase or an idiomatic expression, the words that are used and the grammar in that particular phrase will not be the same. The meaning will be something different. That means to connect them logically, we have to understand what that saying is all about. Right? So, sorry. In the same way, the idiomatic expressions, these are again the informal language. They are not the formal languages. Right? I repeat it again to remind you all that idiomatic expressions or the idioms, the language that are used, they are not formal, they are informal. That has a different meaning, as I told you earlier. It has a different meaning from the meaning of the words in the expression. That means the meaning of the words in the expression, in the sense, the exact meaning, that is the literal meaning of that particular word in the expression. This cannot be translated word for word without causing confusion. If you have to translate an idiomatic expression, or if you have to translate an idiom or a phrase into some other language, you cannot simply translate the word to word or word by word to the other language. The reason being the meaning, the literal meaning of the sentence is something different, but the hidden meaning or the internal meaning of that particular idiomatic expression would be entirely different one. This is the reason we cannot translate the idiomatic expression literally from word to word or word by word into any other language. Sir, how to remember this or how to understand these idiomatic expressions? The next question. It is very simple. If you practice these 7 steps, right? If you practice these 7 steps, it will be easy for all of us to understand these idioms and phrases or even the idiomatic expressions. What are those 7 steps or what are those 7 ways that one has to practice or one has to understand to understand the idioms and phrases. The first and the foremost thing, right? The first and the foremost thing is, as usually we always keep on saying, okay, listening skill is very important. No? Listening skill is very important. So, in the same way, here also, you should listen to the context. I repeat it again, my dear friends. You should listen to the context of the phrase or the idiom, not the content of the phrase or the idiom of that particular expression. Not the content, because I told you the literal meaning is something different for the word that is being used, but the hidden meaning is entirely a different one. So you should listen very attentively to understand the context rather than the content of that particular expression. Then, second thing that you have to practice is that try to analyze yourself whether you have understood the meaning of it. You have understood the context of it. When you understand the context of it, then it will be easy for you to relate. And the third thing is that don't try to bluff or just give away if you don't understand an idiom or a phrase. Be frank. Simply tell, I didn't get you at all. I didn't understand what the saying goes. If you don't understand it, don't just bluff or don't just try to hide yourself that you have understood. Don't try to boast that, yes, 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 I know that. No, please don't do that. If you didn't understand, please do ask for clarification or ask, please come again. I didn't understand it. Can you please tell me, or can you please explain, or can you please describe this phrase? Be honest to say that you have not understood. The fourth and the most important thing is never try to translate an idiom or a phrase into some other language literally. Don't try to translate them. As I told you, translating word to word or word by word is not possible. So don't translate to any other language. Then the fifth one is to listen to how the native speakers use these idioms. Native speakers means the English speakers like the Britishers, the Americans, the Australians, right? They are the native speakers of English. So listen to them, how they use these idioms or the phrases, so that it will be easy for you to understand. Then another important thing, just added on to what the listening skills is required, that is to take notes. That is to take notes or to write down or to jot down what is being said or what exactly that particular idiom or the phrase is telling all about or where it is relating to. Just make a note of it. And finally, one should have that patience and the tolerance to accept the mistake. To accept the mistake. So that means you should tolerate your mistake. You should accept your mistake. You cannot deny it. That's why I said you should be honest when you don't understand. And the second thing is, if you don't understand, if you have done a mistake, please do accept it. Tolerate. Tolerating power is very important. So this is about the idioms and the idiomatic expressions. Few idioms and the idiomatic expressions that are here in the table, you can go through them. There will be lots and lots of idioms and phrases that are used. Few of them are there, right? They say a piece of cake, right? It's a phrase used. It was like a piece of cake. Or sometimes we say icing on the cake, right? When we use these sort of things, we cannot literally translate them, or we cannot understand the literal meaning of it. We should not consider the literal meaning of it, right? A place of cake, a piece of cake means it's not that a small piece of cake is given to you during a birthday party or a wedding anniversary or something like that. A piece of cake means it is as easy to swallow the cake, right? In the same way, anything that is being done is so easy. It is quite easy. Instead of saying it is so easy to do it, it is just like a piece of a cake for me, right? If something is getting added to something to polish on something, it is just like icing on the cake. It is like an icing on the cake, means adding value to it, adding some garnishing to the things that you are saying, right? In the same way, they say when the pigs fly. Have you ever seen the pigs flying? No. That means when the pigs fly, it can never happen. A pig can never fly. That means this particular phrase is used when someone wants to say it can never happen, which is totally impossible, which will never happen at all. Sorry, my dear friends. So, in the same way, we say ki see eye to eye. See eye to eye. See eye to eye means it is not a revenge. No, one more thing is there. Eye for an eye. That is our tit for tat. It is means taking revenge. But here, the thing is see eye to eye. Means you have to see from eye to eye, means it is not that you see from your eyes to the other one's eyes. The literal meaning goes that way. But the hidden meaning in this is that to agree with someone. To agree with someone. So in this way, you can get into a lot of idioms and phrases. Just go through few of these. When you go through few of this in this particular slide, you will understand what is very important, how the idioms and phrases are used in the day-to-day usage of the English communication. So that is very important to understand the meanings of these idioms and the phrases to understand the hidden meaning of a particular statement. So my dear friends, do practice more on these idioms and phrases and the idiomatic expressions. Then the next part that are important is using of modifiers and the parallelisms. Now let us understand what is a parallelism or what is a modifier. A parallelism means it is the use of consistent word patterns using of word patterns consistently, and the endings. Consistent word pattern and the endings. Ending should also be the same one to demonstrate a similar level of importance. Means similar level. When you give importance to something or multiple things, those all those things should have the level of those importance the same. It should have a similar level of importance. That is very important when we use the parallelisms, right? Say for example, okay, what are the things or when we use this individual words, phrases or clauses can all be made parallel. We can make these things as parallel words. Some individual words, some phrases, or even certain clauses. And changing word form. Changing the word form. Form is, again I told you, if it is a verb, V1, V2, V3. If it is a noun or an adjective or sometimes even a verb, it can change from the noun form to some other form. Say an abstract noun form or a verb to an adverb form or an adjective to an adverb form. So you can change the form of the words between the active and the passive voice will also break the parallelism. Say, for example, if the people say that the cat in the hat, the cat in the hat was twirling his umbrella. The cat in the hat was twirling his umbrella, swirling the fish, and on top of the ball. So here you can see the parallelisms. That means the consistent word pattern that has been used. But here they are not been put in the right form. So if we have to make it into the right format, then the parallelism will be the cat in the hat was twirling, swirling, and twirling, swirling, and one more ing form should come standing on the ball. In the first sentence, you see, and the top of the ball. So you here sometimes what happens, you have to add certain words. You have to bring in few new words that can give the complete meaning to that particular saying. So the right way of using the parallelism is the cat in the hat was twirling, swirling, and standing on the ball. In the same way, thing one killed running, jumping, and to fly a kite. So if you have to make it into the right frame of parallelism, then the thing goes as thing one liked, thing one liked running, jumping, and flying the kites or flying a kite. Running, jumping, and flying. So this is how we have to make the consistent use of word patterns. And the endings means ing means ing. You see the next one we see the fish said to catch thing one and thing two. The fish said to catch thing one and thing two to clean the tub and that they should wash mother's white dress. So if you use parallelism in the right way for this sentence, the fish said to catch thing one and thing two to clean the tub and to wash mother's white dress. So these things you have to do a lot of practice. You have to search for these sort of things, because these things we do come across when we take up the exams, because when we read certain prose, certain poetries, to understand them, especially the poetries, when we read some poetries, it is very difficult to understand, because the poetries are written by using these modifiers and parallelisms. So to understand them, we have to understand how exactly or how rightly the parallelisms are used. Once you try to understand this and get into the groove of these things, it will be quite easy for you to understand even the poetries. Then the modifiers. So the modifiers, these are placed somewhere in a sentence where it messes up the intended meaning, right? These modifiers are certain words which are placed somewhere in a sentence, not in a definite place or in a particular place or a specific place. It can be placed somewhere in a sentence and which messes up the intended meaning of the sentence. That means which messes up the actual meaning of the sentence. So anything can become a misplaced modifier. So anything can become a misplaced modifier. So anything here in the sense, the misplaced modifier need not be a particular part of speech. That's why I explained you in the very beginning the functions and the definitions of parts of speech, so that it will be easy for you to understand whether the modifier used is a noun or a verb or an adjective or a preposition. What sort of a thing is that? Especially when we read the phrases and idioms. These modifiers, parallelisms, all these things are much used in phrases, especially the prepositional phrases. So these modifiers, we have to be very careful in understanding them. It can also be defined as being a word or a phrase, right? Being a word or a phrase that changes a word not clearly identified in the sentence, that can change the word, or that changes the word that is not clearly identified in the sentence. The word which cannot be clearly identified. Say for examples, few examples is flying high in the sky, a snail could be seen crawling on the ground below. Flying high on the sky, a snail could be seen crawling on the ground below. If someone is flying high on the sky and can see, so here what happens is that here the entire subject itself is missing. So what is the subject? Who is flying high in the sky and who is seeing that snail crawling below the ground, right? Crawling below the ground. So if you have to make that into set right sentence, then flying high in the sky, I could see the snail, or he could see the snail. That means an addition of subject is required here. You can add any subject. I could see, he could see, you could see, she could see, the dog could see, the cat could see, whatever it is. There is a need of adding a subject here, right? See, the snail crawling on the ground below. Crawling on the ground below means once a person is flying high, that person could see a snail crawling on the ground below him. Here, see the snail crawling on the ground below. Okay? In the same way, look at the fat fish. Look at the fat fish. A yellow hat was noted. So it is not looking at the fat fish, a yellow hat was noted. When we correct that, looking at the fat fish, they noted that it was wearing a yellow hat. Again, you have to put in a subject here. Driving a car, the escape was made. So who made? Who was driving the car? Subject is not there. So driving the car, the fish made its escape. Driving the car, the thief made his escape. So you have to identify the sentence when the modifiers are used, what is missing and what need to be added over there. This is the place where we have to understand very clearly that these modifiers, parallels, oh, sorry, and then idioms and phrases are very important. To understand all these things, we have to practice and understand more about the idioms and phrases, also synonyms and antonyms. Okay, friends. Now, then the next would be the subordinations, right? What are those subordinations? Sometimes what happens, there could be some faulty subordinations. As we learned in the conjunction part of it, subordinate conjunctions. When we frame the sentences with these subordinate conjunctions, we should understand whether the usage of that particular subordinate conjunction is the right one or the faulty one or the wrong one. So, so why do we use this? We use these subordinate conjunctions to express the relationship, right? To express the relationship very clearly and to place emphasis properly and to place the emphasis. Because whenever we are using a subordinate conjunction to join two clauses or to join two sentences, that means one subordinate sentence and an dependent sentence and an independent sentence. So we have to be very careful. So, what are the few subordinate conjunctions that can be used if it is for the time factor? If it is for the sorry, my dear friends, just excuse me. If it is for the time factor, then conjunctions like after, before, whenever, sometimes, these sort of subordinate conjunctions are made use. And if we are using the subordinate conjunctions to give some cause or to give some reasons, then the conjunctions that are used are like because, hence, since, as, etc. And if the subordinate conjunction is depicting a purpose or is being talked about a purpose or it is defining a purpose, then The subordinate conjunctions that could be used are like that, so that, in order to that. These are the few of them. And if we are using a subordinate conjunction to specify some condition, if a condition is being specified in a sentence or in a statement or in an expression, during that time we use the conjunctions like if, even, though, unless, etc. Then how we can use this, right? Examples for faulty subordination: Jack is green and his box is green. Jack is green and his box is green. So if you have to correct that, it will become as Jack picked a green box because his favorite color is green. In the same way, Jane's slow comes and cooked breakfast. That should become as Jane's slow came so that he could make breakfast. Slate grabs Ben's broom and sweeps. For that, Slate grabs Ben's broom in order to sweep. Then certain faulty predictions. So these faulty predictions occurs when the modifier or the noun in the predicate part of it. I told you in the very beginning when we started to talk about the sentences, that is subject and predicate. So if there is a noun in the predicate, that is, it can, if it is a passive voice, it will be a subject. If it is an active voice, it will be object. It can be noun or pronoun in the predicate, does not agree with the noun in the subject. If the noun in the predicate does not agree with the noun with the subject, that's also another condition. That's where the logical reasoning in verbality comes, or in the verbal ability, the logical reasonings. So for this, what are the reasons means? One is the illogical sentence. If the sentence is not logical, then the faulty predictions occurs. Or if the complement is having a disagreement, or if the complement is having a disagreement. How we will see it now? The logical sentence will happen when a human agent is required for the predicate but is missing from the subject, right? Say for example, in a sentence, in the predicate part, a human agent is required. That means a noun which represents the human being is required, but that human himself is missing in the subject itself. Then it becomes a faulty prediction. The pole made Stanley the king. The pole made Stanley the king. So here, you see, in the subject, there is no mankind at all. But in the object, you can see the mankind here. That is Mr. Stanley. So it is not the pole. Pole means what? Who polls? The polling should be connected to some humankind. So humankind is the people. So if you have to correct that sentence, in the right way, then it becomes as the people made Stanley the king. The people made Stanley the king. In the same way, the votes said Stanley was rude, right? Because most of the time when we, during the election period, we would have come across everything, the votes speak everything. It's not votes speak everything. It is spoken by the person one who has voted. That's why the people, the citizen, right? So now what will happen? The votes said, votes, who is the voter? Votes means here, then we should connect vote to a human. So when we connect it into a human, it becomes as a voter. Who is the voter? The subject of that nation or the citizen of that nation is the voter. So we can make it as the subjects said Stanley was rude. When it comes to complement disagreement, when it comes to complement disagreement, this will happen when the modifier or the noun in the predicate cannot modify or substitute the noun in the subject. In the faulty prediction, that is illogical sentence, when we make an illogical sentence, the noun in the predicate can be modified or can be replaced. But here, in this, it cannot be substituted for the noun in the subject. Say, for example, Jack's stack of turtles was the bluest turtles ever. Jack's stack of turtles was the bluest turtles ever. Right? So the Jack's stack of turtles, that means there is no need that the turtles are called as the stack. There is no requirement. So we can simply put that sentence in Jack's turtles were the bluest turtles ever. In the same way, the kingdom of Jack was a jerk. The kingdom of the Jack was a jerk. The kingdom cannot be a jerk. The human involved or one who is ruling the kingdom will be the jerk. So it will become as a Jack was a jerk. So this is all about the English verbality part that we have to understand. So here we come to the conclusion of the important learnings that are required for understanding the GRE exam. So in the GRE exam, how the questions would be given, the patterns of the questions, we would see and understand how to answer these questions. We will get into workout with a couple of question papers so that you will understand all these learnings that we have learned from day one to today, how they help us in understanding the question papers and answering them. Okay, friends, thank you. Thank you so much. See you all for the mock session when we take up the question papers or the model question papers and solve them. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you.